we're gonna start cutting our posts. The first step is knowing how long they need to be. The ceiling is 17 foot tall, so the sidewall posts will go up 17 foot, plus or minus. To determine that plus or minus, we've brought out the laser, and we're going to measure the height of every single post plate here. The brackets are not all exactly at the same height. If you remember back to when we were trenching, we did have an issue where one post was much higher. Those issues continued through the rest of the foundation work, and we'll just cut our posts longer or shorter depending on where they're going to go. I'm just going to take a permanent marker and write on the bracket itself what the deviation is from our desired height. So this guy just shoots a straight laser out in all directions, and it's perfectly accurate within 100 or 200 feet from here. So a nice straight line. I have, basically it's a yardstick that you can adjust and take a reading off of, and it has a detector on the top. So I started right here at the threshold, which will indicate the height of our doorway, and I adjust up or down based on the arrow. Once the laser hits this dead center, I'll take a reading. And I've set the default height that we're looking for at 7.68 feet. It's an engineering stick, so it's in tenths of a foot, and I have to do the calculation back to inches. Next, I walk around from post to post, and I'll put the stick down there. I'll make sure the detector is facing the laser, and I'll adjust it up or down accordingly. So I'm raising it, and we get a nice reading here. I look at the stick, and that post is reading 7.71 feet. Next, I come to the calculator, and I subtract the reference from the post reading. So the post was 7.71 feet. I'm gonna subtract 7.68 feet, and we get 0.03 feet. I'll convert that to inches. It's 1/3 of an inch, which is 3/8. So this post needs to be 3/8 inch longer than the reference, so that it hits the trusses all at the right height. Over here on the bracket, I'm writing plus 3/8. So I've gone through 10 of these already, and just to give you an understanding of the variance, this post will be exactly 16 feet. This post will be 15 feet, 11.5 inches, because this bracket is a lot taller than the others. 15 feet, 11 7/8 inches. This will be 16 foot, 1/4 inch, and it goes on and on. So I've got about 14 more posts to do. Then I'll probably double check them, simply because I don't want to cut anything as expensive as a post without being absolutely sure it's the right measurement. So the highest positive deviation we had was 5/8 of an inch, and the largest negative deviation was 1/2 inch. So for 24 footings and columns, we have about 1 1/8 inch deviation in height. I mean, it's fine, right? Once you put the posts cut to the right height, no one notices. But it's interesting. I expected it to be a little less than 1 1/8 inch, but it is what it is, and it's not a big deal. I've moved all the 4x6s into place. These are our posts for the 2 outside lean-tos. They're pressure treated the whole way up. Of course, these posts are long enough to go all the way into the ground and connect on the footings, but we changed the plans and put in concrete down to the footings. So we'll be cutting off a fair bit of these in order to make them the right height. The end of these posts require some fairly complex cuts, including a bevel into the post to accept the rafter and another bevel to accept what's kind of a top plate, I guess, that will support all the trim on the overhang, or support the overhang. This is what the custom ends look like for the north wall in the orientation that they'll go. So as mentioned, all the rafters will rest on these here. These are LVL rafters. They're a little thicker. That's why they're lower than the two outers. And the outers are 8x10s. Up top is our plate. We'll brace the overhang against that. So that goes pretty darn well across the board there. Made one mistake and cut this a 1/2 inch too far. So we created a little shim. It's basically just a 1/2 inch piece. Put a couple of structural screws in it and we'll glue it later. I mean, it's really just taking some of the weight and putting it downward. So as long as that piece is in there, it should be perfectly fine. Next, we're gonna mark out all the girt locations. Put on some crow's feet and draw a line straight across. One of the oddities about how we built this foundation is that the brackets aren't always in the perfect position. So in this case, we need the post to be at this spot on the outside of the sill plate, but clearly the bracket's in the way. So I've got to trim off approximately 3/16. All the posts for the office wall are done. The tops are all cut to accept the rafters and accept the top plate that'll support our overhang. And the bottoms are all trimmed to bring it back to theoretical, despite the issues we have with some of the brackets. Next, we're going to cut the girts and lay them out. Well, we're finally at the stage where we have to make some decisions. How are we going to raise these walls? Are we going to assemble them all on the ground like this and raise them up in one go? Or are we going to assemble segments and raise those up? Or are we just going to nail the posts into the brackets and build the walls conventionally while they stand? I'm not sure exactly how to do it safely, effectively, with the tools that we have. All we have is our little tractor. It's 10-foot backhoe and a modest loader in the front. We also have a lot of rope that we use to clear the land. Great rope for felling trees, certainly strong enough to tie up a wall. But how do we do it? Do we use pulleys? Do we just connect the backhoe to numerous points and lift with the backhoe? How do we support the bottoms? If we don't support the bottoms, will they slide right out and cause a mess? Will the wall break in half as we lift it? Frankly, we've never done this before, and it is nerve-wracking because I don't know what to expect. What would you do?